Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk about this carbohydrate assessment tool. I'm just going to briefly go over about diabetes education, carbohydrate counting education, and about assessment, and then just go through the development of the tool, and I'll show you a little bit about the tool. So everyone knows that education is a very important part of diabetes care. ISPAD says it's a key to successful management, and NICE say it's essential. So we know that we need to do this. And recently, from Denmark, have come the goals of diabetes education, which I'm sure you all know. This is a structured education program for children and young people with type 1 diabetes. And this has been relaunched last year in 2016. And the beauty of this is that it's age-appropriate education goals, and they do include carbohydrate counting throughout all the ages. So most people know that carbohydrate counting education should be offered at level 3. And if you didn't know, level 3 is where you're adjusting the insulin for the amount of carbohydrate. And this is usually delivered by the Paediatric diabetes dietitian. There is no national education program, and dietitians do a very good job. But how do we know? And I think this is the big thing here. Hopefully you can read that. I'll give you a few seconds to read that. And I think that is something that in diabetes education we do not take on board, is the assessment of what we're actually teaching. It is an integral part of learning assessment. You set all these learning goals, so the goal of diabetes education, have these learning goals. The only way you know that you've achieved them is by doing an assessment. It helps to cement the knowledge that these children have learned and gives them skills and confidence as well. And also, it's a very good way of learning, are they learning what we're teaching them? Because sometimes it can be, just like Stripe there, we think we're teaching them something, but in fact that's not what they're taking on. And also it's a very good way of seeing if we can do better education, if we can teach better as well. So assessment is very important, but it's got to be appropriate, and this is the big thing. So as you can see there, who do you think will get there? And so appropriate assessment is very important. So the Southwest Network asked if we could have a look at doing some outcomes on carbohydrate counting. So I looked up at what there is available out there, and there is very little having a look at carbohydrate counting assessment. In 2013, King's have done a carbohydrate accounting assessment. You might have seen it because it is around carbs and cals. And now Bournemouth have taken it on, and so has Cambridge. But this is all in the adults. Going down to the bottom, 2009, there was a study which is carbohydrate counting in adolescents with type 1, and they devised an assessment tool on carbohydrate counting, but this was for 12 to 18-year-olds. And then in Denver, Colorado, they looked at both these two quizzes, so the pediatric one and the adult came out from the same hospital, really from the same people, and the quiz is actually very, very similar. And here in the ped carb quiz, it was 12 to 18-year-olds, and if the child was under 12, the parent did it. So there was those. So looking at that, there was nothing really there that we could use where you've got sort of specific goals, appropriate assessment. So I decided that we would have a look at devising one, and all those have got names. So I thought, right, first thing I need to do is try and find a name. So came up with CC-EAT, which stands for Carbohydrate Counting Education Assessment Tool. And from there, I then looked at using the goal of diabetes education because I needed learning goals. And this actually is really good because it makes much easier to do age-appropriate assessments. And because the goals of diabetes have goals for carbohydrate counting, I was able to use these very easily. I decided I would do primary school because there was nothing out there at all. So for that, I obviously had to go off and see a primary school teacher to help me a lot with the language and the ability, because I think that's something which we don't really know or appreciate, is the ability. And I was amazed that actually the teachers would expect a lot more of the younger ones than I actually thought of. So it was really, really helpful. And she also helped me with the scoring, because when I was at school, which was a long time ago, it was all done on percentages, and they don't do that because they said they become very competitive, and if they didn't get a high percentage, they get very negative. So she helped me with the scoring, and so what we've done is it's divided into secure, sufficient, developing knowledge, and requires more support, which is much nicer than being given a mark at the end. So these are the tools that we use, and I'll go through each one briefly, because I know it's the afternoon and people need to get off. So this is year one. Now, I've really shortened the goals, but if you've got the goals of diabetes education, you can see what the goals are. So in year one, you're looking at beginning to recognise foods and drinks that contain carbohydrate, and you're beginning to understand that you have to count the carbs. So in year one, it is very easy. We're just looking at identifying foods that contain carbohydrates and which foods don't. So they literally tick the ones. And I'm sure you'd be surprised that they do quite well. But everyone always thinks egg have carbohydrate in. I never know why. Maybe because it does taste a bit sweet, but they often think egg has carbohydrate in. So that's a very nice, simple way to do. And what we do then as well is we do a little food profile as well. So they draw a picture of their favourite foods, and they get the dietitian to help write it as well. In year two, as the goals of diabetes education, they're all in 2-year groups, so the goals are the same, but the outcomes are a little bit more advanced. So they're now having to look at identified foods in a meal containing carbs. I've just got the first picture, which is an example, but then they've got about 6 pictures of foods, and they have to circle the carbs. And at the end then, they also have a picture of 5 bottles of drinks, and they have to choose the one that has no carbs, that they can drink freely. And obviously that's the one that says sugar-free on it. In year 3, the goals change. Now, they are fairly similar, the goals, but here it's much more about year 1 to 2 was about understanding, and now in year 3 and year 4, it's recognising, and that all carbs must be counted. So here we are looking at foods, which food has the highest amount of carbohydrate. And on this one here, they have to tick which food has got the highest, and it's also with the drink as well, which is on the other page. So I haven't shown them all there. So that you're slowly building on all their knowledge for carbohydrate counting. Year 4, we're just beginning to bring in about reading labels. So there's a nice chart there, and they have to fill in the food, the amount of carbohydrate there, and it's also with drink as well. Now, year 5 in goals of diabetes education actually jumps quite a lot. And in year 5, they start to need to know all the different types of carbohydrate, which I was really surprised at, because in my education, I tend to give it to the parents when they're first diagnosed and then don't really bother about it again. But again, the goals of diabetes education said that children should know these, so we've gone back to teaching them. So again here, and this was quite a nice thing that the primary school teacher told me, is they're very used to drawing lines to one another, which I sort of didn't realise, and they find this quite easy. And it's quite amazing how a lot of them, without very much education, will automatically go to the glucose, because they know that that is for hypos. So they do know quite a bit already and are beginning to understand these here. And then on the other page, there is a very simple, straightforward food label, and they have to answer questions on that. And then they're looking at which meal has the most carbohydrate in. And then in year 6, because this is the year before they go up to secondary school, it's really important that their knowledge is as good as possible, because there's a big jump to secondary school. So here the assessment is a lot longer. So we're looking again, as the goals of diabetes education said, so the goals are very similar, but we're looking much more in depth, and the label has a bit more complication, and they have to work it out, things like that. And also we're starting using the Carbs and Cows book. Now, you often think that it's very easy to look at your food and to look at Carbs and Cows and work out the carbs. Actually, it's very difficult, and a lot of people find that very hard. And it's been a real eye-opener, because I did this and I thought, no, it's going to be far too easy for them. But actually, I'm quite surprised how a lot of people cannot see that. We all learn differently, and some people are very visual and can do it, and other people aren't. So it's not a case of just sort of giving Carbs and Cows and people can get it right straight away. So again, that's really good, because it just tells us, do they need any more education around that? We have piloted in some of the Southwest Paediatric Diabetes Network, the hospitals, and the dietitians have given me great feedback, and from that I've done up the changed the tool. From parents, it's been really useful. I'll just give a couple. We've got one family, and the boy is just started year 6, and he was diagnosed at 3. Fantastic control. You know, they come to clinic, absolutely brilliant. And so I went in and just said, look, you know, he's just starting year 6. We need to make quite sure his education is up to date. And he did year 5, because although these are age appropriate, you've also got to take in maturity and things like that. And he'd only just started year 6. And it was quite staggering, and to the parents as well. His understanding of diabetes was zilch. He really didn't know anything. He had no idea which foods contain carbs, nothing. And I mean, some of that is my fault. It's not just his, but it's also the parents do everything. And the parents did take this on board and just say, oh my God, he goes to secondary school where he'll be expected to do everything, and his knowledge was really poor. So from that, it's been fantastic. So we've slowly put in a plan that over the year he will develop. And also this has helped the nurses as well, because you know, I fed back to them that his knowledge wasn't very good, and we've all put in plans to get him up to speed so that when he goes off to secondary school. And then the other way, I had a little boy who was in year 2 and has lots of difficulties at home and at school. And, you know, I did the assessment and I didn't really expect him to do that well. But he did brilliantly. His knowledge, his age-appropriate knowledge, was secure. It gave him so much confidence. It really did. It was lovely. And it also gave his mum lots of confidence as well. And it was really nice to be able to feed back to the nurse as well, saying, you know, his age-appropriate knowledge is really good. And it really boosted, and he went back into school as well and said that he'd done really well on this test. So it's good. And both those 2 cases where we'd got it wrong of what their knowledge was. So going forward, a lot of the dietitians in the Southwest has said, could we have this on an app? So I approached Bath College and asked them if they could help us, because I haven't a clue how you get something like this onto an app. And the lecturer there was really interested and said, actually, this would make a brilliant BSc final dissertation. So I've got 3 students working on it. I'm not really sure what they're going to come up with, but the fact that someone is working on it and we'll be able to develop it happens from that. I've also applied for a research because I really want to see if this tool is valid, reliable and sensitive to change, because then it can roll out and we can use it. And the other thing is, as well as Helen said, because I come from Bath, is that we have very few ethnic groups in our area. So a lot of the pictures are very traditional. So we want to devise a way of being able to get ethnic and culture food pictures in, and hopefully that was taken on by Bath College students, and they were going to have a look that could you easily integrate in the app different pictures for different foods. And so just to recap, diabetes, all about education, but we need to assess as well. And so it's a rolling thing all the time, just going, learning is all continuous. But hopefully, if you've got any primary school children with type 1 and you're thinking of doing a carbohydrate counting assessment, do think about this tool. It would be really interesting to get feedback. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I'm really impressed by your work, and I wish you will develop it further.
Thank you.
Just a question to you. Knowledge and behavior are very different things. People know smoking will cause cancer, they still smoke. People know overeating will cause obesity, and they will still become obese. So you can test knowledge, and you can say that we taught them well, but the behavior aspect of it is quite different. So I just want to warn you that you can assess them, but whether they will day-to-day behave and do those things is quite different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done previously on newly diagnosed, we looked at carbohydrate counting, and I did give them a quiz for secondary school. And the people who scored the highest were the people that had the highest HbA1c. And that is exactly it. But this is actually making quite sure that they do have the knowledge. All right, so if you have the knowledge, then the behavior, yeah, absolutely. But we have to make quite sure that they have the knowledge first.
It helps you target resources.
It does.
If you know to tick that box, then it's more a
yes.
approach that you possibly need to take.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any other?
Yeah, it's
Thank you, Holly. That was fantastic, Anna. And in view and spreading and getting people interested and helping you get it to the best possible tool, I'm making an assumption which may or may not be right, but you're using the DMEG subgroup to help across the country, or are you actually doing this very much in the southwest with a view to getting their opinion later?
At the moment, it's just the southwest.
Okay.
But I mean, what I'm hoping to do is to my proposal for the research has gone in, and so I'm just waiting back on that. But the idea, I mean, yes, I'd love it to go nationally and throughout, but it obviously, probably for the research, from my point of view, it's going to be easier to keep it in the southwest because of travelling and things like that. But the idea, if the research comes out, which hopefully it will, because it was quite interesting in the other carbohydrate assessment tools, the King's one has not been validated at all. They've done nothing with it. They've just put it out. And the other two were found that they were reliable and valid, but they didn't pick up change. And that's really important. You need to pick up change as well. There's one over there.
You said you'd like us to give you feedback on this. I can't find the tool anywhere. Will you be sharing this tool with us so that we can give you feedback? Because the app will be a while coming out.
As I was saying, just at the moment, it's in the southwest, but I'm more than happy. I can leave my email address. I'm more than happy if people want, I can email them the assessment tools. Obviously, because it's going to research, it's copyrighted, and you can't, from that. But, I'm more than happy to say, and the more feedback one gets, the better the tool can be.
Can I just say I enjoyed both the Bath talks, the student school education and yours. And on behalf of the Yorkshire and Humber network, would you be happy to share this with our admin so we can
Yeah,
that'll be okay.
Absolutely, I'll get Lucy.
So
Lucy is
I'm
too.
sure Jenny will be in touch with you. But thank
Yeah.
you so much. I really enjoyed those two talks.
Good, lovely. Thank you.